Party, da, 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 here we are. First of all, thank you so much, Ashley. I'm super excited to be able to spend this hour with you. Um, and I would love to read what I wrote for an introduction. And if you want to embellish it because you're so amazing, I totally would encourage you to do that. But I always write these good bios, or at least I think they're good. And then I'm like,
They are good.
I'm like, I can read this. This is pretty good. So Dr. Davis is an executive and leadership development coach with a gift of helping other people reconnect with their purpose, presence, and personal power. I just love that so much because in today's world, we think of leadership in so many different ways, and I feel like that's so at the heart of who people are and what they really need. Of course, as a graduate of Coach Training World's whole person coaching program, Ashley blends her deep understanding of human development with decades of experience spanning healthcare, higher education, and athletics. Her professional path includes serving as an internal consultant for leadership and organizational development with one of Pacific Northwest's largest healthcare systems, as well as leading initiatives in professional and continuing education that supports adult learners and professional growth. Of course, Ashley brings a unique perspective from her years in collegiate athletics and the fitness industry, coaching high performers through both personal and physical transformation. She holds a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership and is widely recognized for her empathetic listening, trust building, and authentic presence. Her clients describe her coaching as transformative, grounding, and a catalyst for change. So, welcome, Ashley. And I'd like to add it and has a great smile. You have such great energy. I just really appreciate you. So,
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here, truly.
yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
That was pretty much Ashley Davis in a nutshell. I would like to think you did a wonderful job, but um, I just would like to think that I'm so like what you see is what you get, and what you read is what I hope to present today because it's truly me. And I will share, and I'll probably say this again throughout our time together today, but I truly feel like my purpose on this earth is to provide a space for other people to thrive. And I do that through my own self-actualization, and using my own level of peace and joy and fulfillment as a means to serve others and finding their own. And so the reason I'm here today, the whole reason why I decided to become a coach years back was for that exact reason. So I feel like just saying that underpins the, beautiful bio that you've concocted, but that's truly me. There's not much more to share about myself.
I don't necessarily agree, but we'll go with it. Well, and I appreciate that you said it because I feel like the most amazing transformational coaches are people that prioritize their own growth and really realize, and my favorite phrase is who we're being with that person is really the difference we make. And when we really put ourselves on our list to take care of ourselves, to grow ourselves, then we can bring our best self. And I would say create much more of a space for them to rise up into the person that they want to be. So,
Yes.
absolutely. So I'm curious, I have a crazy popcorn question, but what's the day in the life of Ashley? I know I'm not starting where I thought I might, but I just thought like, because people always ask me that, and I'm like, oh, how do I explain? So I'm gonna make you do it.
That's an excellent question. It pretty much starts the same every morning, Monday through Friday at least, and then I leave a little room for some spontaneity on the weekends. But I get up at 5 a.m. I read my word, I write in my journal, I say my gratitude and my affirmations to myself, and then I come into my kitchen and I make my what I like to call like my wellness concoction. It looks like mud water, but it's not. It's greens and there's some collagen in there and some energy and apple cider vinegar, because you got to take care of yourself. And then I go and I work out every morning. And then I get my day going, listening to something that's going to help me throughout my day. Because I feel like once you open that door to leave, you don't know exactly what's going to come your way that day. And so my best bet is to make sure that I am stuffed up enough with the good stuff so that whatever comes my way, I can handle. So I will tell you that recently my mornings have been filled with so many teachings grounded in Buddhist wisdom. I'm on a deeper path to enlightenment at the moment. And so I've decided to forego all my social media right now. And it's just all me, all enlightenment and my present day, everybody in my day and my path, and not living in kind of that false or maybe sometimes real, but mostly false kind of social media world. And so currently in the last 2 months, because it's been a little over 2 months now, I've just been filling my soul with the grounding, with teachings grounded in Buddhist wisdom, and really reassessing where I am in my life and thinking about things like, are the decisions that I'm making coming out of calm wisdom or chaotic reaction, right? Really asking myself these questions. And so that's what my day looks like. And professionally, I work in continuing and professional education with one of the 23 CSU institutions here in California. And so, as director of program management and partnerships, I'm liaising with our internal and external stakeholders to create programs, whether those be academic programs or non-credit professional development programs or workforce development programs that really fulfill a need for students looking to upskill or reskill, for organizations looking to upskill their workforce, or just individuals finding themselves in a place in their life where they're like, I need more. I want more training. I want something a bit more fulfilling. So we have currently a cachet of 31 programs that we offer, both academic and professional development, and then a slew of other things that we offer our learners to just help them become better in their field or in their academic endeavors, etc. And then when I come home at night, I it depends on the night, right? So it's Wheel of Fortune some nights. Okay, I love Wheel of Fortune. Or if it's Monday night football, I'm watching football. I'm an Eagles fan, so maybe there's some Eagles fans out there. I just went to my first Eagles game this Monday at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. I'm still on a high. I'm so excited. We lost, but I was so grateful to be in the building. It was amazing. I feel so grateful. So I'm a huge sports fan. It's just how I grew up. And then I make sure that I end my night with skincare, soft lighting, and some tea. And so that is the bulk of it. I talk to my mom and my dad every day. And I make my connections, whoever it is that day that's calling, my friends or whatever. But I try to keep a really peaceful, joyful, grounded life.
And I hear balanced too. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That you're preparing yourself as you enter the world where you have service and also take care of yourself and the
yes.
relationships. Yeah.
Because I learned the hard way. So I don't, it was a lesson I needed to learn. But you hope that once you know better, you do better. And that's not always the case. But in that particular regard, I now know better. And for about 8, 9 years now, I do better. And so that's also something I try to impart on the leaders that I work with as well.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump in with my crazy question of you work with high performing professionals and they're often at a crossroads. Um, Maybe they feel successful, but maybe they don't feel, maybe they also feel unfulfilled. And I would love to kind of just paint that picture. Like, what does that moment look like for your clients? And then how do you really help them in that moment where they're at that, polarity of like, I'm successful, everything's good, and this isn't really mattering to me.
Yeah, I had a therapist at one point in time, and she was amazing. And I was going through a transition in my own life. And I remember her telling me I was struggling with the feelings of how do I feel grateful for the life that I've led, while also honoring the frustration that I feel in this moment of my life and in this pivot. And I remember her telling me that it's not two sides of one coin, it's two separate coins. And so I think that is how I try to provide space for clients when they're working through these kinds of things is that you can be grateful for the success that you've had and also feel like you're not fulfilled or feel that you want more or feel that you want something different. And so the way it looks on the outside, that can be across a multitude of different areas. Maybe they're having relational challenges that really are stemming from the unfulfillment of self, or maybe they're feeling a bit apathetic on the job. And it's not that they're not excited or interested, it's that or that they don't have that capability, but it's that they're working in a job that does not fulfill them. And so they're coming every day in this kind of apathetic approach that doesn't fulfill them. Something that I'm seeing recently, and I've within the last few years, I would say definitely ever since COVID, and what I've experienced myself is that burnout can take shape in a multitude of ways, and we will often internalize those feelings. I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough, I could be doing more, go go go, when really it's burnout, or in some regards compassion fatigue, that's rising up within that person, and they don't even understand, yet they think it's them. So oftentimes what I try to do is just provide that space where we can really just slow down. It's that hour that that person gives back to themselves where they can kind of turn off the noise and really go inward. But oftentimes going inward, you need a very safe space to do that, because what comes out of the inward, if you're doing it in a way that's intentional, has the capacity to truly impact your outward.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because you talked about like your clients always experience you as someone who can be really trustworthy and a safe space provider. When you're in those moments, and especially because when I work in corporate, sometimes there's a lot of the I want to focus on the doing, but
Hmm.
the masking that happens, and then the inability to just get to the real core things. And like, for example, I just had two clients in a row actually have the same thing where they had a loss, a friendship that was moving away, a partner that was letting go, relationship, um, and they didn't want to talk about it
Hmm. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
that wasn't part of the leadership or executive coaching process. This is my private life, and yet that was the big thing that was bleeding into everything that they were saying and doing and wanting, is just this heavy. I mean, they said I just feel so heavy, both of them. And in those moments, it can be really challenging because we want them to feel safe to bring their whole self in, and sometimes the context of quote unquote leadership executive, maybe there's a feeling that that's not appropriate. I don't know what has been
Yeah.
your experience. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you say that, because a client now, and I might be jumping ahead to this case study
that's okay.
portion, but a client that I have right now, I've worked with him for 3 years now, and it started within the organizational setting. This person was a fellow within the organization, and part of the fellowship experience was that they were guaranteed an internal coach to work with. I was assigned to this gentleman, and so I've seen his evolution from fellow to full-time amazing professional, but then finding himself in the professional space where he wanted more. And so we worked through the ask and exactly what are you asking for? Now, how are you going to present that to your one up? The advocacy piece. And is this something you actually really want? Or is this something you should just be pushing for because you've been at the organization now for a couple of years? Really working through all of those pieces. And the most amazing thing is when the real, because he had been asking, kind of inching towards the real ask. And when it happened, he did not get the answer that he wanted. But his ability to reframe, and we looked at it as, but did you really lose? Like, you've done all this work, you're advocating for yourself. You kind of got what you needed. It might not have been within the organization or the promotion you wanted, but look at what you've been able to work through to be able to find yourself professionally advocating for yourself, getting clear on what you want, and now you have the answer and you know how to move forward. But what was so interesting about that is that he learned the power and advocacy professionally, and then he realized what he was not doing in his relationship. He
Mm.
wasn't advocating for himself. Then he found himself asking, is this really the relationship that I should be in? Because I never asked for what I needed. Now I'm questioning this relationship. And he had been with this person for 3 years and they lived together. And so obviously to question this could be earth-shattering, because his day to day could change drastically if he began to advocate and ask for what he needs and that person not be able to fill those needs. And so he had some hesitancy bringing that, to your point, to the coaching space. And I felt as though it was a natural progression. We went through all this professionally, and how do you know you didn't go through that professionally in order to arrive at that for your personal relationship? And something that always stuck with me, it was someone that was in my coach training world cohort. They said this beautifully years ago that when they work with clients, they are a champion of the client and not the client's story. And as my client was working through whether or not our coaching partnership was the appropriate place to bring his relational challenges, I just shared that. I said, we will go at your speed as always, but I need you to know I'm the champion of you and not necessarily the story, because the story is always going to change. And we make room for those changes.
I love that. And it reminds me of we're coaching the person, not the
Yes,
problem. Coaching the person to be their own problem solver, own generative creator.
absolutely.
Of course, I'm like, what happened? But you already did.
Well, that's unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, we actually had a session last week. Um, they broke up.
Yeah.
They broke up. And in our session last week, I could tell that he was emotional and he had been crying. But what came out of this transition was that he realized how much community he has and how he wasn't giving his community the opportunity to really support him in his life, because so much of his persona is taking care of other people and making sure he presents this facade as though he kind of has it all together. And it was a very emotional session last week. But through all of the emotion, what shined through beautifully was that he's okay. He
Yeah.
knows this is the right decision, and he's very firm in the decision. There's no teetering
Mm.
on could we or will we. It's, I know this is the right decision for me, and now we're going to work from this space in terms of figuring out the way forward. I mean, they bought a house together. It's all these things, right? Life is
Yeah.
intertwined, but they're no longer together. But he's okay, and as a coach, I'm just quite proud of the way that he's been able to navigate this entire situation with a very clear lens.
What's interesting to me is when you talk about his ability to be with what is happening, going to Buddhism here, to be with what is going and to be in that stable base, you know, I have ideas of how that might have happened, but what do you think helped him to get to that place in the coaching?
He and I talked a lot about self-concept and how we see ourselves, and the way we see ourselves eventually will determine how how deep we believe in our ability to overcome or to triumph. And I really feel as though the turning point was what happened professionally and how much he built his own self-concept up and being able to advocate and make an ask. And that was so life-changing for him. I think that gave him a base that he was missing.
Mm.
Um, and so that then was the catalyst for this. He's a very positive person. And we've talked about, is his positivity kind of, does it teeter over into that toxic positivity? And so I think him even being able to peel the onion back one or two layers and take that positive lens off, because the positive spin is beautiful. And in a lot of ways, that helps us cope with life's hardest challenges. But again, kind of going back to that coin metaphor, it's not either or. Two things can be true at once. It's a both and. And so I think when he got past that positive lens and then really began to look at the core of things coupled with his professional experiences, I think that was the base. Because to be honest with you, we had the conversation, and he told me, he said, when me and this person got together, I knew that there were certain things that I didn't bring up and I didn't ask for, yet they built a whole 3-year relationship on that.
So from a coaching approach, do you have like a way of working with people and how you bring in kind of the whole person, mind, body, heart, spirit, and relational? Like, what does that look like? What's your little signature sauce?
My sauce, honestly, one, I think from the coaching experience is that there's so many tools, right? So many things that we could employ. And I think when I first started coaching, I was so concerned with using all the tools and all the pieces and making sure that I was doing it the correct way and using the whole person coaching way because you taught us up so well. And I wanted to make good on that. And I gave a lot of my time to senior coaching and coaching up other individuals who were training to become coaches. And so I wanted to make sure that I was using all the tools, but I got to a point where I was like, I came to coaching for the most authentic reasons, yet I'm coaching and feeling inauthentic. And so now, years later, I've found myself in keeping it absolutely simple and using the tools when they truly are necessary, but also not bombarding a person with so many different things. And so, in this instance, for example, and granted, me and this person, we're 3 years in. So there's much more of a deeper rapport than with somebody that I've just started coaching. But one of the greatest, I would say, tools that I've learned is certainly the mirroring, repeating back to a person what they've said. I'd like to call it like their genius, right? A lot of times when we're in these spaces and life is heavy, we're not necessarily paying attention to the things that are coming out of our mouths and how all the answers truly lie within. And so I use the coaching space as a means to mirror back to a person. Do you hear what you just said? Did you just catch that statement? And then from there, what I'll often say as well, and I remember in coach training, we were taught to ask the person, is it okay if I share this with you, what's coming up? What I will do is after I kind of repeat that person's genius back to them, I will underpin it with, can I share something with you that's coming up based on what you just said? So I'm sharing, what I'm feeling, but it's predicated on what they've shared. And so it's a constant cycle of them at the forefront. Them. Do you hear what you just said? Do you hear what you just mentioned about last week? Do you hear? Do you hear? Do you hear? And so I'm constantly putting them at the forefront. And really getting this person to understand that all the answers you ever needed or were ever looking for are truly within. It's just a matter of, are you going to get quiet enough and are you going to trust enough to believe what you know and what you feel?
Well, and that whole mirroring and backtracking of the words and helping people to hear themselves
Hmm.
is such a powerful way to help them to start to do that on their own and develop
Yes,
that inner witness, which is
absolutely. And
a gift. Yeah.
the inner witness is so important because sometimes that inner witness can come from the negative standpoint of you don't have all the answers. You don't know what you're doing. You're posturing. You're not really who you say you are, right? And so the inner witness, but coming at it from I would say, the abundance aspect where you have what you need. You can make it through this. You've done X, Y, and Z. Look what you've done this far. It puts such I would say a helpful spin on the inner witness to where that inner witness becomes a friend and not a foe.
And embracing your wholeness.
Yes, absolutely. Always, always, because we bring our whole selves to the space. And part of the way that I help individuals work through life's hardest challenges is through this concept. One of my favorite books ever is called The Zimzum of Love. It's by Robin Kristen Bell. And Zimzum is a Hebrew term, Zimzum. It's a Hebrew term, which means to contract. And so the idea is that in the very beginning of time, when it was just God, in order for something else to thrive or to be created to thrive, there needed to be some sort of contraction or stepping back. And so while this couple related it to the institution of marriage, I would like to think that a Zimzum can exist anywhere. The space between two people, the space between all of us today on this call, we are all in a Zimzum together. And the beautiful part about a Zimzum is that whoever is in that space, you bring your whole self. That's the only way it's going to work is that you bring your whole self. And then the people in that space, they step up and they step back in order for that other thing to thrive. And the energy within the Zimzum is dynamic. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle, but it's based on what I would like to think like a servanthood of I know what I bring to the space, so I can confidently step back so that you can have your chance. Then that person will step back and it just becomes this volley. And so that's how I also look at the coaching space as well, is that it's two people kind of bringing their whole selves to the space and just that volley, that stepping up, that stepping back. But as coach, doing so in a way to where that person knows that they are the driving force behind the whole dynamic.
It reminds me of kind of the skill of contributing where the client might say something and we step back and let them fill the space. And what we offer is either for them to fill the next part of the space, or maybe we contribute by building on,
Hmm.
or, and then stepping back to that. I don't have my little thing. I always throw up a thing like, and let it go. I'm not attached. But I think we all benefit from having seeds and contribution from other people, as long as we feel like we can still bring our whole self, especially I think it's unfortunate that sometimes people will see coaching as the coach is basically there and not really contributing, and maybe offering a perspective or a quick thought or a resource. And there's a lot of schools that will say, don't do that. Um, when that's not actually how the ICF perceives it. The ICF perceives it. If you're offering things, then it's just from a place of heart and not, I got to have you, you got to see this. And in those places, sometimes those seeds we drop, maybe the client picks up and goes, that isn't the seed, but this is.
Yes,
This is my,
exactly.
and it's like you got the brain going again. Not so much that your idea, here's my idea. It's like, hey, the brain just got jogged into a new direction and now they're tapping on more points. So,
Yes, and I love that thought because I feel like from an integrity standpoint, I would feel very inauthentic if something did come up that I feel like could be beneficial for the space, yet I inhibited myself from sharing that thing and not sharing it that I have to force it upon that person, but that could potentially be the spark that creates the path forward for that person, or maybe not. But that's not the goal. The goal is utilizing the space and sharing what comes up, not the degree or the depth to which that person picks that up and puts it in their pocket. And I can't control the coaching space in that way.
so my favorite question to ask is, has there been a coaching scenario that in some ways challenge you to the point where you're like, I got to grow in this way?
That's such an excellent question because I was pondering this morning as I was preparing for this session, and I was thinking about how I always walk away from the coaching space feeling fulfilled as though I was coached. It's a very beautiful dynamic where it's like there's mutual benefit in coaching. And so I've walked away from many a sessions feeling like I should go look that up, or I should go deeper within myself to think about these things. When I was an internal coach, an internal consultant within the healthcare organization that I worked in for almost 3 years in the state of Washington, it was a highly matrixed organization. So at its height, it was about 25,000 employees. And I sat at the system level. And so I was working with clinical leaders. So we're talking about surgeons and doctors. I was working with nursing leaders. I was working with administrative leaders. So it was a multitude of people whose day-to-day duties differed depending on what service line they worked in. And what I found was that I just needed to be a constant as opposed to trying to shapeshift based on who I was talking to. And the intention there was good. I had the best of intention, but I had to realize that my skill lies in being able to provide the safe space and the constant space for people, as opposed to trying my hardest to shapeshift to kind of serve what that person needed. The space is going to do that itself. But upon taking a step back, I found that I needed to get quiet with myself to really realize what was my desire to begin with that I felt like I needed to shapeshift.
Mm.
And it was because I was in my own transition, having moved at that point from California to a whole new state that I didn't know anybody in, just to take a job, had no friends, no family. I really took a chance on life. And I was feeling a little shaky in my own foundation. And so perhaps I was looking for a bit of assurance or a bit of validation, when in reality, I just needed to give that to myself and hold that steady. Um, Eckhart Tolle calls that a frequency holder, where you hold your frequency instead of trying to change the environment, hold your frequency and the environment will change because you are holding that frequency. And so that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And I had been coaching for a few years at that point. But again, it was this highly matrixed situation where I hadn't necessarily been in up until that point. But holding my own frequency and really creating a space, no matter who it was, that was authentic to the person, but not the service line they worked in. Of course, those things would come up through the conversation, but the space is the space.
I'm resonating so deeply right now with what you're saying. So I used to do a lot of full system work where I would work with C-suite, senior leaders, and then the growth opportunity employees. And I would
Mhm.
watch to build trust. You would see different versions of me.
Yes.
And, while some of that felt authentic, but some of it felt like I just was trying to match and so I could fit into the culture much quicker. But at the end of the day, it was almost like I kept wondering, is the C-suite seeing how I operate with the, you know,
Mm,
growth opportunity employees because I'm being much more relatable to them, in a way that they could not see me as one of the C-suite. And
yes.
it was exhausting, to be honest.
That is such a great word to use, because I remember at that time, now granted, I had just moved, my life changed drastically, but I remember at that time I was talking about work and I was talking about all these things. And my mom was actually the person that pointed it out to me on, she said something to the effect of like, you must really be tired. That must really be a lot. Who do you have to talk to or to go to? And so that exhausting word, it's so interesting that you say that, because that was the feeling, and a very familiar feeling that I have felt throughout my life when I'm navigating life in a way to where the inauthenticities are rising up more than the authenticities.
It's so easy to go in such that protective mode.
Yes.
And then we come home,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, take it
And it's an instant relief, right? It's like, this is who
off.
I really am. Accept it, everyone.
It reminds me of years ago, I was speaking at a dental conference, and I don't know what provoked them, but they introduced me as a health and wellness coach, which I wasn't. And instead of correcting them, I was like, well, I don't want to rock the boat and make them feel embarrassed. I'll just like wing it. And then people started asking me all these health and wellness coaching questions. And, I had done that initially as a coach, but then I decided that, I was more health and wellness to me was more about emotional resilience and things like
Hmm.
that, stress and nervous system. And it was funny because they'd ask me all these questions and I'm like, should I not tell them? Like, and I told, I asked the people that introduced me, I said, where did you pick up the health and wellness? And like, well, I forgot what I should call you. And I'm like, and then they felt really bad. So it was really kind of amazing that they just went with it too.
Yeah,
And at the time,
everybody's just winging it, you know?
we're like, okay, I mean, no harm done, but anyway.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, if you were to give advice to a coach and say, what is the inner work that's worth doing that really helps you to prepare yourself to be with people and to get out of their story and to be able to really truly, I think about it as remain attached and non-avoidant, so I can lean in, but I'm not going to get sucked into the story, or I'm not going to put my value into what my client does and realize that my value is intrinsic to me and my process. That was a lot of words. Sorry.
I think we're just advice for a coach, or what I would tell a coach. You know, one, I think I would share to maybe really take note of what led that person to coaching to begin with.
Mm.
I would like to think that for many of coaches, at least many that I've worked with and that I've served as senior coach for, there's a similar trajectory where there's kind of like an awakening, and that's what this is called today, right? It's talking about awakening. There's something that kind of comes alive within that person that leads them kind of down this coaching path. And I would probably also venture to say that they had probably had many a conversations in their life prior to that point where people are like, wow, you're really easy to talk to, or, wow, like there's just something about you that I can just share. Or, you're in the grocery store and you get random people coming up to you and they just want to share their life story. Like those kinds of things. Those kinds of things I see as not being coincidence. And so there's kind of like they say nature versus nurture, right? I think it's not a versus. I think it's the way that we nurture someone's nature. And so where in your nature can you lean in even more? Because this is who you are. So in embrace those things. And so I would ask the person to kind of think about what's led you to coaching up until this point. And then as they get into coaching and coach training, I would encourage people to think about having their own outlet. Coaching is fulfilling in a number of ways, but it's also necessary to have your own outlet, whether that be a coach or a therapist or, a teacher, a guru, whatever, God, but have a place where you can go to share your own innermost thoughts and feelings. And maybe that's done 5 to 10 minutes prior to getting onto a coaching session, not just going from one thing to the next, but giving yourself that time to get clear, to be grounded so that you're truly present in the coaching session, but also so that you don't find yourself vulnerable to what that person is sharing. And then you become kind of incapable of helping that person and leading them through what they need to work through during that session. And so I think I would wrap that up in saying that the biggest word of encouragement that I could share with coaches is that take care of self. Self-care is not selfish. And I would even take that a step further by saying soul care is not selfish.
Yeah.
The greatest, in my experience, the greatest and strongest coaches are those, and we started this session off today, are those that have the ability to pour into self, that know what they need, who they need, and how they need it, and are on a constant trajectory of self-actualization because we never truly arrive, right? There's always more. And I would say the hungrier and the thirstier that we are as human beings to find out who and what we are as we age and as we mature, I think in the coaching perspective, that to me creates the strongest coach and the coach that can compartmentalize and that can provide a space without being overly sucked in or overly invested to where they aren't useful for the space or for the client anymore.
Absolutely. I always encourage people. It's like, who's got your back because you're taking care of everybody else, and who's behind you that you can lead into, and I think, the beauty of any work like coaching or healing or therapy is we are holding a pretty profound container. And sometimes it's super uplifting. Sometimes it's like, we could feel the feels with, and not having that support, really leaves us almost at a nervous system level, very vulnerable.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. And, for me, while my purpose and my gifts and my skills and my talents are wrapped up into me stepping into coaching and wearing the coaching title, at the end of the day, I'm also providing a service. A service that people are paying for. And so I have to also be cognizant of that as well and not let some of these other things overshadow the fact that I am at the end of the day providing a service. And for many of my clients, their organizations are paying for this service for this person. So there are those very kind of, real aspects present as well that I also have to be reminded of.
absolutely. So I'm curious. I'd love to open up to see if anybody has anything they'd like to share or any questions. If you either maybe use your digital hand or do a shout out, I can bring you up. Robert, did you want to say something?
Hey, it's she's brilliant. She's really got it together, and yeah, I'm happy to emulate such a thing. In my, I've been working at becoming a coach for 30 years now, so I think I've healed enough to actually start to participate in the correct way. After I finish your training. Yeah.
Robert, do you happen to have a question for Ashley, or I appreciate your kind words.
Oh, yeah. I probably have a lot of questions, but I've had to heal my stuff before I could behold the presence. And I had the habit of always finding solutions for my clients. And that was no, that was bad. Yeah, dropping how do you stay connected to self and not let the person's agenda affect your performance? Okay.
Well, first, Robert, I want to say you said you've been doing this for 30 years. I'm sure there's some things that I can learn from you. I always say I know a lot, but certainly don't know it all. So thank you so much just for being here, but for the wisdom that you hold as well. I think your question is so good. Recently, I heard the fact that peace is a practice, and peace for me is so important, but I never looked at it as a practice. And I say that because your question makes me think about what are we practicing on a daily basis that's going to ease us into the coaching space to where we feel prepared and ready and that we have a strong enough foundation
Mm-hmm.
and not susceptible to being overcome by what that client is sharing that particular day. Now, we can practice just like in sports. I can put up 50 shots and then have an off night. So that's going to happen. But I would say more often than not, it's the examining of what am I practicing on a daily basis that makes me useful for the coaching space more often than not, as opposed to kind of going in dry and not kind of, getting loose and working myself up on a daily basis. The way I am in a coaching space, this is for me, is also how I navigate my daily life. I don't put the coaching hat on and say, okay, I'm coach now. I take Ashley into my professional space. I take Ashley, the coach, into my personal relationships. I take Ashley, the coach, into my coaching relationships. It's just that in the coaching space, I might be employing a different set of tools, maybe a bit more intentionally, but the essence of that is the same person throughout every space I navigate. And so, again, it's that practice of what am I doing on a daily basis, practice wise, that eases me into the coaching space and sets me up with a clearer foundation so I'm not as susceptible to being overcome by what that client is sharing. I hope that answers your
It
question.
does, actually. Yeah, I mean, my issue was I used to put all my attention into the universe and coach from a intuitive. I used to use the reference. I use the reference points of everyone wants worth and a sense of power in their lives to create what they to motivate their intention to create what they want to connect with self. That's a presupposition, of course, but it's a reference point from where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, as I've healed my own, I had super severe PTSD and split from self, and I've had to reconnect and learn how to stay in self. can be present, and then hopefully everything comes through as it should, and I ask the right questions and so on. But hey, yeah, I've been compelled to be a coach for. I'm a carpenter and I work in construction, and then I coach in my spare time. But most I was trying to win the Kentucky Derby in one session, So that's not the right way. So I want to become a whole person coach to lead and pace to actually go from where they are to their success in a more profound way. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to be successful. I know.
You definitely are. You
Yeah,
definitely
it's
will be
hard to
successful.
put the past aside with all its when you're constructing people, you really consume so much of your attention and your time, and then you have an identity for that, and then to step out of that identity and back into the coaching world, and just to be that, it's almost like you have to put a blanket over that world for a while and just fully associate myself into my new the world I want to have. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Robert. And I'm hearing that your identity is growing.
Well, it's
Yeah.
I'm becoming more aware of which which part wants to, or the self that wants to do this, and the other self that was trying to find love outside of self in construction. Wow, did I get roasted with that? But I could have used some of your coaching services probably a few years ago to get myself out of my own way. So anyway, all is good.
Well, thank you again. I've got a couple other people wanting to jump in, but Robert, always remember, come to the Coach's Corner, get coached. It's free.
Well, well, it's beautiful, but I'm here today to find out how I can get in alignment with your program and
Yeah.
start the next leg of my journey.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to Aileen. Aileen, sorry. There we go.
It's Eileen. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. This is super interesting, insightful. I know you're a doctorate. I'm not sure what your background is specifically in, but one of the questions I had is I'm a mediator, and a lot of times in my sessions, there's a struggle between trying to keep them from turning it into a therapy session, versus an actual mediation session, especially if it's co-parents or, there's a lot of feelings involved. When you're coaching, because you give the example of the gentleman who had, you were an organizational coach, right? So executive coaching, and yet his personal life was a part of the picture and came into the picture. If you're not a licensed counselor or therapist, do you ever find that you need to be careful of crossing, a fine line between, like, this is a coaching session versus this is not like therapy, and I can't be sort of not even diagnosing, but like work with you in a therapeutic manner. I was wondering if that's ever something that you have to contend with, and if you do, what you do.
I think that's an excellent question, and the answer is yes. And my first thought goes to, for me, making sure that as we get the coaching partnership off the ground, that is made very clear from the get-go, is that this is not therapy, and I will not be therapizing you. Not even sure if that's a word, but I will not be therapizing you, and we won't. And I think drawing the distinction, because sometimes people don't know, and especially within the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, we've seen this surgence of therapists who were trained as therapists now becoming coaches, because the techniques are very similar, but in coaching, you don't have a lot of the documentation that you do in therapy. And so now we're seeing the rising up of therapists becoming coaches using the same skills, dare I say, intruding on the space. No, I'm just kidding. But I think making sure that that's clear in the beginning. But what I would also say is that coaching is very future focused. It's the past has happened. Of course, we have to address the past in order to understand where we're going in the future or what's happening in the present. But it's like I tell people, I'm going to let you go there, but I'm going to reel you back in because we can't stay there. We're not going to create a whole session's worth of energy on what happened then. And that's what therapy is. Therapy digs. If a wound didn't heal properly, the point of therapy is to go back and dig the scar tissue out of that wound so that it can heal in the correct way. And so I would say if more often than not, you're finding yourself or those clients are more so in the past and can't move forward, can't be present, can't think about the future, then that they're not ready for that mediator space. I don't know,
Yeah,
Ferocious, would you agree with
that's
that?
great. Sorry, Fersha.
Oh, I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, would
Oh,
you agree with that? I saw you shaking your head. Go ahead, Eileen.
I was
I,
just going to say that's great because that's how we guide them in mediation is to say this is forward looking and working on that separately. So it's helpful to see that um, it's the same concept and can work in the same logic when you're working with someone. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for that
Really,
question.
really great.
It's interesting because what it brings up is the conversation of, we're not focusing on what was, but we're focusing on what is. And I always
Hmm.
remind myself, it's like, what is right here, you know, knowing, and I think, I love what you said, Ashley, about reeling back in. So it's so easy to go back in that direction for sure. Thank you, Aileen. Zia, jump on in.
Ashley. So I want to start by saying I appreciate your time today. And I'm a brand new coach in training, so I enrolled a few weeks ago. So I a few of the things you said spoke to me, and like one of them was when you said that to just like be yourself and just trust that like the coaching space will like help the client. And I think that's good for me to keep in mind. Like, I don't need to really change who I am, like, just be me and just like trust that coaching process. So I really like that you said that that was inspirational. And then I wanted to ask, right now I'm learning about how to like enroll clients and like that initial meeting with them. So, like, what do you do in like that first meeting you have with clients to kind of build that like trust and rapport with them?
That's a great question because, the first meeting is everything, right? It can kind of make or break it, right? So definitely, I would say leaning on the tools and the things that I've learned. When I first started, I really used a lot the wheel that Coach Training World provided us that kind of sectored out a person's life. I think it was across 10 different areas, and they were to go and kind of rank those areas based on their level of satisfaction. I think it was like a 1 through 10. Um, but now what I really do is I just, it's a simple conversation. I'm really gauging where that person is in their life. Now I'm kind of also in this space of like, this is also like, I need to see if they're right for me, not me just being right for them. And I had to grow to get there because at first I was like, well, how could I, be choosy? But I do that a lot now because time and energy, they're precious. We can't get them back. And so I would just encourage you to really, one, lean on and trust yourself and trust your coach training, trust what you know. And then from there, welcome and invite people into the space. Make people feel like it's an honor and a distinction to be there. Invite them and I welcome you into this space. Let's have a conversation because for a lot of individuals, it is very vulnerable to even say, I need help. I need coaching. I need therapy. I need mediation. Right? So just the fact that they're there, I'm so grateful that you're here. It's an honor to share a space with you. Make that person feel like there's no other space like this in the world. And then from there, utilize your tools, but don't do like I did and be all fragmented, with how you're doing it. But do so in a way that feels authentic to you, but that also kind of eases that person's worry or that tension because the questions are normal, but we also want that person to feel like this is something I can do. Like I want to come back here. This made me feel good. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad you
Absolutely.
mentioned doing something that feels authentic to you because I know that I could probably be that way too. Like, okay, I have to use all these tools like in this order. So yeah, it's good to know, like, no, I don't have to do that. Yeah.
No, and I do think it's beneficial in the beginning. It's like they say you have to be a user of something before you can like push that thing forward, right? So I would say lean on all
Mhm.
the tools and be a user of it. I remember I used to like sit with like a pad folio like this, and I would
Uh-huh.
like have everything written out, and like I was taking notes, and it would just get so
Uh-huh.
exhausting. And so
Mhm.
I would say definitely be a user of those things, but as you grow your own comfortability and your own trust in your skill, think about what works for your style of coaching, because I think that's the other biggest piece at play here is that while we are all learning the whole person coaching method, even within that
Mhm.
method, that's the umbrella, we all have a different style. And that's
Mhm.
based on our lens of experience. That's based
Mhm.
on our professional experiences, our relational experiences. And so I would say take time to also think about what your brand or what your style of coaching within the whole person coaching umbrella or the framework, what your brand or what your style is going to be. What are people going to know you by?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Great question. I want to add on to that. And I think like Jizzy, a lot of the tools, I think of them as frameworks. So you can
Mm.
put them in your bones and then you go freestyle and create your own signature coaching approach.
Okay. Thank
Because
you.
Lord knows we don't need to do the same as everybody else. Oh my gosh. Well, we've got just a couple minutes, and I would love to just invite Ashley if you wanted to share your website or any place where people might want to reach out to meet you and learn more about you. And I'll do that, of course, on the video as well. But that, and then if there any other words of wisdom we have for our group before we close up today?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Ferocia, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I came to Coach Training World at a time where I was working through, I was in the last legs of my doctoral journey. I had just resigned from my job, so my summer was quiet. I was waiting on IRB approval from the institution I was going to conduct research at. They were on summer break, so summer was quiet, and I was twiddling thumbs. And I had a lot of time to think, and that is how I was led to Coach Training World. And I remember from my very first informational call with you, something resonated, and I knew that it was the right place for me. Never could I imagine that coaching would take me where it's taken me, but I'm so grateful for you and what you've started, what you have with Coach Training World. So thank you so much for today's opportunity. And thank you all so much for being here. I never take these opportunities for granted. Again, part of my purpose here is just to open up space and to share and to thrive and allow other people the opportunity to do so. So thank you so much. I'm kind of like a best kept secret. I don't have a website or anything. So much of my work is just like word of mouth. Truly, that's how people come to me. So you can, I'll put my email down here in the chat. And please feel free to reach out to me. You're more than welcome. It's in your light 111 at gmail.com. There it is there. We can set up a Zoom, we can set up a phone call, whatever, makes you feel most comfortable. And then we can go from there in whatever way that the space needs. But that's how to get in contact with me. I'm on LinkedIn too and all the things, but no website. Truth be told, I was working on one in 2021. Um, but I felt so inauthentic in doing it. And I felt like I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. And so I stopped doing it and I never went back. So maybe in the future I'll start one. But for now, please feel free to reach out directly.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe you just don't need one. So,
Good, because, comparison, right? It's the thief of joy. But I think I was starting one just because and it didn't feel right. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks again, Ashley. I always appreciate being in your presence, and I'm also very grateful for all of the people you've senior coached because I know it was a few.
It was an absolute pleasure.
And I will definitely put up I'll let the video process and we'll put it up on our channel and send a link to everyone. And I know there's quite a few people that weren't able to make it today. 'Tis the season. Yay.
Yay!
But Many, many blessings. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, Ashley and everyone. And look forward to seeing you Coach's Corner next when we do. There's a lot coming up. And I love the fact that Christmas we kind of shut down for a week.
Woo, we all need it. We all need it. I got 2 weeks off coming up. I'm so excited. So we all could use it.
Oh, thank you so, so much, my dear friend.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I wish you all the absolute very best. And thank you, Ferosha.
All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.